Well, it's Valentine's Day, and that can only mean one thing. Millions of girlfriends are gonna drag their boyfriends away from the hockey game in order to take them on a romantic movie date. And what movie do you think they're gonna go see? What is coming out that will definitely appeal to women, but might also have something for the guys? The answer that the movie scientists of Hollywood have come up with is This Means War, a film that stars Chris Pine and Tom Hardy as two spies who work for the fake CIA. They work as partners, but they couldn't be more different. Chris Pine is a womanizing, smooth operator, while Tom Hardy is a sensitive guy who has an ex-wife and a son, and all he wants out of life is to meet someone with whom to fall in love and grow old with. Through a set of crazy circumstances that somehow hinge around the very specific location of a video store in 2012, they both end up falling for the same girl. And that girl in this instance is not a girl, but a woman who's a very successful, career-driven, beautiful blonde lady named Katherine Heigl. No, it's not Katherine Heigl, but it could be. It's Reese Witherspoon this time around, playing the girl who has everything except for the love of a big, strong man. Only in this film, we see that when it rains, it pours, and what happens to her is that she ends up having two guys fighting over her, and she has to pick one. Oh, to have her problems. This film is a fantasy. It is cleverly well, not that cleverly, but it's engineered specifically to appeal to women. And I would venture to guess women that already have boyfriends or husbands, because there is that whole spy element. They are involved in car chases, there's a few explosions, they shoot their guns, they kill a guy, they torture a guy with pliers. I mean, if the movie focused more on what they were doing day to day at their job, it would end up being a very different movie. As it stands, all the spy stuff takes a backseat to this crazy, completely fabricated, totally unrealistic, and yet 100% predictable love story that, given 5 minutes and a few drinks, you could have written yourself. And better, probably. And for a film where two spies are trying to outspy each other, they don't really do any cool spy stuff. There's no like laser pens or like infrared night vision, none of that. All they do is plant security cameras in her house and stick a GPS tracker on her car. Like, that's stuff that I can do. And if I did do that to someone who I was courting, she would call the authorities and I'd go to prison. The film is just poorly put together. It's directed by McG, who, you know, not only was it directed half-assedly, but the performances by Chris Pine, Tom Hardy, who I used to think could do no wrong, no good in this film, and Reese Witherspoon, who you could at least count on to carry her performance with some consistency throughout the film, but instead, like from one scene to the next, she's a completely different person depending on who she's sharing the scene with. But none of that is probably the fault of the people I mentioned. The problem with this film lies squarely in the script. It feels like a first draft, you know, a sketch of a stock romantic comedy featuring the most one-dimensional characters you can think of. And for a romantic comedy, there sure aren't a lot of funny jokes. I mean, there are a few one-liners that made me chuckle, courtesy of Chelsea Handler. Otherwise, they feel like filler jokes. They feel like first draft jokes. Like, lady says something funny here, I'll think of it later. At any rate, I'm sure it's a big shock to hear from me that this movie is no good. It's literally crept up on us. I didn't even hear of it until about a week ago, and a week from now, I'll probably have forgotten that I'd even seen it. Destined to end up in the bargain bins at Walmart. Now, as I said, it is fantasy, it's a popcorn film, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there have been plenty fantasy popcorn romantic comedies that have succeeded over the years, and one that I can think of off the top of my head that actually accomplishes some of the things that this film tries to is Romancing the Stone from 1984, I think. And talk about fantasy, Kathleen Turner plays a romance novelist that gets wrapped up in this crazy adventure involving a treasure map and stolen jewels and a drug cartel and a crocodile. And it features Michael Douglas in an early role before all he ever played were old dudes. And that is definitely a film that maybe hasn't really lasted for the 30 years since it came out. But upon watching it, it's hard to deny that it does have some sort of classic, kind of lasting Hollywood effort put behind it. They put some thought into it, and they came out with something that's fun to watch, totally fluffy, not disposable though. It's a classic, Romancing the Stone. Stay at home with your sweetheart and watch Romancing the Stone instead of going out to watch This Means War. All you'd be doing is telling Hollywood that you want them to keep making movies like that, and nobody does.